Look at this. Remember this name. You can go look this up, right? Polycarp. The bishop of Smyrna was martyred. And we're going to talk about that. Though without the sanction of the Roman government, which was absolutely illegal. It was illegal to do it, but eventually it became legalized by the emperors. Why? Because you got to come back up here. The honoring of Tiberius and his mother Julie. Then you had these false temples up here in Smyrna. What was the problem then? If you had those people and Christians there, the problem is the Christians didn't assimilate. Didn't assimilate. What does that mean? They wouldn't go in and worship the emperor. They had another king. You think Tiberius was going to put up with that? No. They wanted them to worship his mother. She was a goddess, not just his mother. The Christians said, no. They wanted them to go and worship Zeus in Cybele or Artemis. And the Christian says, no. They wanted them to participate in the games, the gladiator games. And the Christian said, no. They wanted them to participate in sports like, the Olympic Games and the Itmas Games and all these other games. By the way, all those games were ran and played in the nude. They wore no clothes. And the Christian says, no. So they started looking at Christians as outcasts and people who were totally against culture, people who were aliens, and we are. And because of that, the religious folks caught the leader of the Christian church in Smyrna, Polycarp, and they killed him. And you would think Rome would be in an uproar, because typically they are when you do something like that without the government sanctioning it. But instead of being in an uproar, what did Rome do? Tiberius celebrated it. And you know what happened? That brought on even more persecution of the church. Now, you're going to see where God honors, not Polycarp, but honors the church at Smyrna, because those people led by Polycarp did exactly what God told them to do. Watch. He was martyred without the sanction of the Roman government. It seems that the Jews of Smyrna, who? The Jews, man, the first century, these Jewish people were really, really against Christians. Why? Because Christianity was going around and saying that their God was a man, that their Messiah had already come. And the Jews were saying, no, he didn't. Were more antagonistic than were the Romans, and they were. And for that reason that I just told you, against Christianity. For it was said that even on Saturday, their sacred day, the Sabbath, they brought wood for fire in which Polycarp was burned. Friend, do you understand what they just said right here? Do you understand what they just said? The Jews in that day was willing to break the Sabbath, the sacred Sabbath, to commit murder. Yet, they were saying that they were a follower of the one true God. Think about that. They were prepping for murder on a day that's supposed to be holy and resting in God. Friend, that is total deception. And that's where people are today. No, I ain't talking about no Sabbath. I'm talking about sin in general. His grave is still shown in cemetery. Like many other cities in Asia Minor, Smyrna suffered frequently, especially during the early years, 178 to 80 AD, from earthquakes. A lot of earthquake in that area in Turkey, and it always escaped the total destruction, but it struggled big time. I mean, you literally had to get the emperor, and thank God the emperor was interested in Smyrna because it took a lot of money to rebuild these cities when the earthquakes would hit them. So there you have it. Uh, During the Middle Ages, the city was the scene of many struggles, the most fierce of which was directed by Timur, which was a descendant of royal family of the Roman Caesars, against the Christians. Tradition relates that there he built a tower using as stones. Listen to this, folks. The heads of 1,000 captives. 1,000 captives? Yes, Christians, which he put to death. Yet Smyrna was one of the last Christian cities to hold out against the Mohammedans, the Muslims. In 1424, it fell into the hands of the Turks. It was discovered. It was the discovery of America and the resulting discovery of a sea route to India, which ruined the Smyrna trade. So, if you look at it today, Smyrna is still the largest city in Asia Minor, with a population of over 250,000 people, of whom are half are Greek and less than one fourth are Muslims, even though Islam is now the predominant religion over in Turkey. But think about this: Islam was not the dominant. It was Christianity that dominated Turkey at one point, but now it's dominated by a totally false religion. And that's basically how it works. Now, let me get into my notes concerning Smyrna. I just wanted to show you that and give you a historical background of what's happening in the region of Smyrna, because it's very important based on what Jesus is going to say in his letter to Smyrna. So let's go look at that. So, in culture, in the culture of in Bible times of Smyrna, obviously it was a thriving coastal city in Asia Minor, known for a strategic location and strong loyalty because of what I just read to you. And I read that first because I'm not giving specifics; I'm giving general statements concerning Smyrna. But now that I read you the history of Smyrna, you can now see what I mean by loyalty to Rome because of Tiberius and the now it's a temple to Tiberius. It wasn't just some headstone with Tiberius. No, 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 no. Friend, he had a temple erected for him, and it was a very large temple. So did for his mother, and she was worshipped as a goddess. Now, in both the temple of Artemis, or Selenian, and the temple of Julia, his mother, folks, there were temple prostitutes there. People came in there and they did some of the most immoral. I don't want you, look, for history's sake, you can go read about that stuff, but look, it was horrible what they were doing in those temples. And that's what made the Christians say, no, no, don't want no part of that mess. Okay? A vibrant culture, it was a major trade center with a significant Jewish population and prominent Christian community. The city also had a strong emphasis on emperor worship, and I told you who the emperor was, which presented a conflict for Christians who recognized Jesus as Lord. Here's a more detailed look at Smyrna's culture and its impact on the early church. Now, again, folks, this is coming from my personal notes as I study. So this is me writing based on the historical details that you can find anywhere on the internet. So this is a summary of what I do prior to reading the letter that Jesus gave to the church. So strategic location and trade, Smyrna was situated on the Aegean coast, and I showed you that in the picture. at the head of a large gulf. So you can see right here in the picture, here's the Aegean out here, and here's the Gulf. The Gulf is right here that I'm making reference to, okay? Like the Gulf of America, one of the Gulf. The same thing. This would be called the Gulf area as well, and this would be called the Gulf area. The Aegean is out in the open waters.